Hello everybody, in today's video we are going to be doing a review on a Plarail or Tommy's Plarail item, and that is a review on the Plarail Gordon model with its express coach. So let me just get the camera facing the right way and we'll take a better look at it. Okay, yeah, so I positioned the camera a little different, fixed or messed with some things with the lighting. So yeah. So let's take a look at the express coach first, just to get it out of the way, and then we'll take a look at the Gordon. So put the Gordon off to the back. So the express coach is just a standard express coach I've gotten with almost every version of Tommy Gordon. You only get one. I wish the wheels were a little bit spaced out more, and I wish you got more than at least two, because you never. I don't know. I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure you never see Gordon just pulling one express coach. So yeah, I wish there was more. And let's take a look at Gordon himself. As you can see, this is the newer version of Gordon, the one that has the uncoupling tender. Some people call it the segregated tender. I think that's what it's called, segregated tender, something like that. Pretty much it just means that the tender uncouples like that and can be removed from the locomotive, unlike the older Tommy models where the tender was bound with wires, because in the original Tommy models, the battery was held in the tender, which pretty much made the engine go. But on these newer models, that's not the case. The battery's up in the front of Gordon, which, let me get a screwdriver to unscrew him. Just a little unscrewing shot, maybe. Like that. Oh, that's not. There you go. Here's Gordon. This is the new Gordon. This is pretty much how Gordon's chassis looks. As you can see, it's a much more shaped. It just looks very much different from what we're used to seeing. Especially considering the fact that, well, you're used to usually not being able to see this, as the tenders engines always have the motor in the front and the battery in the back, and now the motor and the battery are in the front. Now, this switch is different. Unlike older engines, where there's usually a pivoting point, which is why the switch always leans back and not straight up, like that. See, it always pivots. It's always going to be at an angle. It's at an angle when it's on, and it's at an angle when it's off. If we take a look at that compared to if you take a look at the new, redesigned, well, this isn't new at this point. This is already a couple years old, actually. It's really old at this point. Not really old, but it's decently old, and most people, and pretty much everybody knows about it. But this just stays straight the entire time, which I'll go like that. See, it's straight the entire time. Now, this is a much more sprightly version of Gordon. Let me just try to get him on the track. You can see he is very sprightly. Rolls really smoothly since the day I've had him. I've had him for about, I want to say, at least 6 months now, so he's definitely doing A-okay in that matter. But because they decided to redesign the switch area, his firebox did suffer a little. Gordon is known for having his firebox go down like that, but on this side where the switch would reside, this part of the switch would reside, you can see that there's just a little bit of a square. It almost looks like Henry's boiler, if you really think about it, as Henry as a square. And I really am just bringing in my old Tommy Henry, just because that's the only other Tommy tender engine I have. So unfortunately, the windows aren't blacked out, but there's pretty good detail in there. Of course, you got the splash of white, really good CGI face, square buffers, you got cylinder, I think that's what that's called, cylinders, and then the pony trucks, which are like that. I don't really mind that. I mean, is it the same gauge as the track? No, it's too big for the track. Wow. You can't, make it fit on there. It's too big. So let me just close this up real quick. But they did introduce these new side rods, because unlike the older design, which I'll have to bring in Henry again, the the pistons were actually, like 3D. So that's pretty much how the connecting rods stood up, and that's how everybody remembers them. But, and the tank engines usually had this, like a design like that. I don't really have any other tank engine. I don't feel like grabbing in my drawer, so I just have this one off to the side. My real Steam Thomas. So it got that same design, but it also has this, which for some reason Gordon's the only tender engine to have that. The redesigned Tommy Henry, or Plarail Henry, doesn't have that either. Now we're going to take a quick look at the tenders. The tenders, there's not too much about the tender. The tender is pretty much the same, just you got a coupling hook. You can't pull that back. It's been, like, glued down, not to mention there's a screw holding it in. I got the back buffer being painted. The buffers are square as well. And you know what? I think we've talked a little too much about this Gordon. Might as well see it run. So, yeah. Okay, so before we go on, I just want to say I'm sorry if this looks a little bit more weird than usual. It is because usually I'd have a light right here, this cheap light, and it just flickers on like that. Usually I'd have that right there to balance it out, and just expect this to look a little bit more darker. But yeah, we got Gordon. We've seen him with the battery, so we're just gonna so we're gonna let Gordon take a run now, and we're gonna slowly follow him around, coming to the back. He's actually making a pretty good run time, and luckily he hasn't knocked anything over. Actually, I think he knocked over a tree. We'll let him run around once more, just for good measure. Letting him run around. As he rounds the bend right here, we're going to put that to stop, and Gordon will stop. So that is going to be it for today's video. Hopefully you like this Gordon review, and let me know if you want to see more reviews on more Plarail engines.